All right. So I like the fact that the last video I did, or the one today, one of the videos I did today, kind of talked about that Chicago tie, which is really cool. And I'll probably come back with more content on that. Probably do a second video on that coming up in the coming days. But right now, I kind of wanted to talk about certain things, about myself. And I'm going to start with something that's repetitive, but go into something else. I mean, I know that, I've told you I started at a basic level, and I've told you how, like it was like since I was a kid, year after year, it was like I would go through a cycle, like kind of a typical life cycle. Everybody goes through a cycle, 3 months, 6 months, or whatnot. And I felt like I'd always go through that cycle. But because I was losing everything that I gained day after day, I was kind of almost invisible. Not only was I invisible, but I was unable to carry through, to follow through. At the end of every cycle, when I could have, and it's not even about being strong or being anything. Like, it didn't matter what I did, because at the end of the cycle, either I was too weak, or I was too strong, but things were just off, or I couldn't deal with it, or I wasn't able to keep up. Pretty much, we could sum it up as not being able to keep up. And then, I talk about this change that happened. I talk about the end of last year, right after Christmas holidays, before New Year's. And I could feel it, and it was an incredible feeling. It was like I was a different person. Like, it was just an incredible feeling. I just felt free and released. I even felt like everything just felt better overall. It was crazy. And then day after day, I noticed that I didn't lose anything. I carried everything I gained with me, and I moved up. Rather than fall back, I moved up every day. I took every day with me, and the next day I still had the previous day with me, and so on and so forth. 30 days in, I had all 30 days with me. I didn't drop anything. I held everything I learned. I held every experience. I held how I felt. I held how I dealt with updating and dealt with the world and everything like that. And that was when things changed. I felt myself, in a bad place again. That same place, end of that 6 months where I'm about to die. I feel so weak. Or even if I'm strong, I'm just unable to deal with it. You know what I mean? And in that moment, when this time, when I experienced it this time out, I got through it, and I made it pass. You know what I mean? It's kind of anyways, yeah, that's fine. But I'll tell you really what it's like. If I was playing a video game, let's say, and I had 10 levels to beat, the first level, of course, I'm going to beat it. The second level, it's like I've forgotten everything from the first level. But even though I forgot everything from the first level, at the second level, I'm witty enough to win. And that might take me up to level 3 or 4. But it's not going to get me to level 10. And I'm not going to finish that particular game. And we know games have versions. Another game comes out, part 2, part 3. So, so that's very important for me to explain that. The other thing that I really wanted to get into was, it's very strange. So I shouldn't say I always felt like, but it's hard when you're on a conscious level all the time, and you're very open, and when you're very public, and when you're very obvious, you kind of, you don't. It's almost like everything subconsciously, you keep it at a level where nobody else knows. And everything that you consciously know and carry in your mind, you carry in your mind, and people know it. It's like, it's like me having two faces. You've heard of that, the Batman character, the villain, Two-Face, right? It's like I had two faces. And it's so funny because it's like I had like this side of my face was like white. Okay? And I'm going to tell you something. When I was a kid, about 5, 6 years old, 7 years old, I had an issue. Half of my face was a different skin color than the other half. I'm not joking. And I showed the doctor, and the doctor's, all he said was that it'll go away when you get older. That's all he told me. He said it'll go away when you get older. What happened was that the right side of my face was tanned and brown, and the left side of my face was white. or not even white, just very fair or light, very light skin, almost white. And this one was very tan. Didn't really know why. You know what I mean? But it was almost like the left side of my face was, and to be very accurate, I would say not only would I say did it appear to be, it just gave, the appearance that it gave off was like almost like Arab, and when I say Arab, I even mean like, and I'm not specifically saying it, I'm not specific because it's hard to specifically say it, but almost like Saudi or so, and sometimes, it just appeared as a Saudi, right? And the other side of my face looked Turkish. Okay, so imagine how strange that is, because when you think about it, like as of World War I and World War II and Lawrence of Arabia and all those stories, we know that the Ottoman Turks on this side and the Arabs on this side hated each other, right? The Saudi Arabia, that country was under the Ottoman Empire, and they hated them, by the way. It's not like they were like, oh, we love having these Ottoman Turks as our rulers ruling over our land. No, they absolutely hated them to the T. Blood to blood, there was bad blood, and it's still there today. But the point is that, it's funny because if you have one side and another side, and I'm not saying it's like being half and half. It's almost like one is a dimension that maybe everybody sees. One is a dimension that maybe only some people notice that much, right? And when having that gave me a very odd life, right? Because, it put me in a position where I was in not only was I in no man's land, but I was stuck at level 1. So I was at my basic level. Now, for other people, it might have been level 3 or 4, and that's why I appeared to be normal, right? But I was like, for myself, I was at level 1. Let's say now I was at level 10 or 12 or 15. Back then, I was at level 1 stuck there. So it's obvious that, so, you know what I mean? So spending a couple of years in Saudi Arabia, in the beginning, and then moving to Texas, which basically was American desert, and then moving up north, it makes sense now, right? But it always felt like, that I always had and I know it sounds very odd, but it was like I had a bit of a connection with the Arab people or the Arab side. Now, I had a bit of a connection with the Arab people because, they felt like that was my real face. And let's say they thought this was my real face, but they thought that this was basically Turkish. And them hating Turkish people, Turkish people hating them kind of made a very complex situation. Well, we think he's Turkish, but listen, on the underground, he's Arab. And the Arab side, they're like, well, he looks Turkish, but on the underground, he's Arab. And it creates a very odd situation. So basically, like the Turks will be like, like on the surface, this is one of our guys, and that's how we're going to treat it. And the Arabs are going beneath, like on the inside, this is one of our guys, but he's on that Turkish side. And for whatever reason, he seems to be proud of that Turkish side. He seems to be proud of Turkish history. He seems to be, he seems to like his Turkish face. Whereas, what we think of him as an Arab, we find him much more attractive. We find him much more better looking. So why is somebody who's that good looking wanting to look Turkish? Oh, it must be hate, man. And the Arabs probably fucked them up, fucked them over. You know what I mean? They start coming up with those stories. Because like, why would a guy who's so good looking and a good looking Arab want to be, a decent looking Turkish guy? When you're very good looking, why would you want to downgrade and be that? Something's got to be wrong with this guy. This guy must be a total idiot, whatever the case is. You know what I mean? It creates a lot of different things and whatnot. Now, the truth is that at level 1, I'll tell you, honestly, it didn't matter what my face looked like. It didn't matter because deep down, this is what I look like. You know what I mean? As I matured, my features have revealed themselves and have come out to what they genuinely are. And I neither look Arab or Turkish, which is a funny thing, right? But they didn't know who I was beneath that level. And maybe both of them were insulted thinking that beneath that level, I wanted to be white. and that I only wanted to associate with white people. And then some white people were like, well, he doesn't associate with some white people, but he associates with other white people. He's probably just a gold digger, who wants to be rich. You know what I mean? And there's all these different situations happening, but at a basic level, what do you expect? If you're creating that kind of buzz just from the way you look, but you're at a basic level, you're not really having much say in anything. You're getting thrown wherever. You know what I mean? And what ends up happening is that as it gets bigger and more known, it's like, it's like different players in your life, pushing your life and everything. You know what I mean? Kind of get what I'm saying? It's very confusing sounding, but I'm gonna go on now. But as of now, and by the way, I used to feel it. Like I could almost feel like I had a deeper, like on the underneath, I actually had a connection with Arabs. Whenever I would see an Arab do something, it was almost like I could understand why he was doing it, or she. I was a guy, a girl. When they do something, it was almost like I could pick up on their vibes, not their vibes, but I could pick up on their feelings and understand how they were feeling. But let's say there was somebody else who was supposed to be like me. I could never understand what they were feeling, thinking, or who they were about. I couldn't even relate to them. You know what I mean? Let alone date anyone from their side. Never having even had a crush on someone from their side, never having even even like hug somebody from their side. That's crazy, eh? Like not even giving a hug to someone from their side, not even dating someone from their side, not even checking out someone from their side ever. You know what I mean? You see how crazy that is? And then on this side, it's like all that stuff is there. So I could really feel these guys. These guys, I didn't feel them at all, but I could understand what they were saying because what they were saying was coming out in layman's terms, very simple and very obvious, and very easy to understand and use. So I was using that on top, but beneath everything, I understood exactly how all these people were feeling on this side, right? I couldn't understand what they were feeling like, but I could understand what they were saying on this side. I could understand what they were saying. You know what I mean? What they were trying to communicate, I could understand. But deep down, I didn't know anything about them or how they felt. This was the opposite. On this Arab side, I could understand how they were feeling, but I didn't really understand what they were saying at all. I couldn't understand anything they were saying, but I knew how they felt. You know what I mean? So what a complex situation. Now, where, if you're smart, you know where I'm going to go with now. I'm going to go with now with these mature features. And I feel it. The crazy thing is I feel it because now it's like everybody can see what I really look like. And when everybody sees what I really look like, it's like life socially is totally different. Dude, like I don't have a connection with that Arab side anymore. It's almost like they look at me and that thing is gone. Like there's no understanding of feelings. I don't understand how they're feeling. They don't understand how I'm feeling. They're looking at me like a Latin guy and like an outsider. And, I'm kind of looking at them and I'm understanding what they're thinking. And on the other side, these guys are basically, up to the same old cheap tricks, which is pretty much, how much money can I make off this guy? You know what I mean? Which is a very stupid mentality because this guy already has a lot of money and he doesn't really need you. This guy has like a worth in the millions. He doesn't need you. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So that actually just cleared up. And then me being my genuine self, everything just carrying out and making sense. And there's no complexity with one side or the other side. There's no confusion. There's one face, one person, and everything is pretty much very, very obvious and understood. And not only is it understood now, but it kind of understands all the behavior patterns of the past. And it all falls in place and it all makes sense because Latin people are very independent. They used to journey to continents, man, taking over continents and stuff, or creating new countries and stuff, and traveling and being independent. So as a Latin person being at level 1, I'm not surprised. But as a Latin person being at a much higher level today, again, I'm not surprised. And again, I understand everything very clearly. I'm very glad what I did with this video. Could have used an extra minute, but I'm out of time. So I'm done.